right. Let me adjust my microphone, sorry for that. And turn this off and go to here. Something I realized when I was skimming the old YouTube ski is that I have yet to show you guys a really freaking cool map that I did a long time ago. I'm not sure why I haven't put this map up before, but I was in the process of fixing some things because with the new update, sometimes things just go south. So this is called Red King Enter. I'm just going to drop it on my One World mod so that it will import it. This is, again, my work table. Hence the sparsity, so to speak, of things. I don't have much on this table. I don't have anything around it. I don't usually keep anything near it because it really is just pointless. Somebody was asking me about Lightsaber. I did export the settings to a file, I think in one of the last videos. I'm not sure. While I'm prepping this, couple of things. I do a podcast. Actually, I do a couple podcasts. I am one of the hosts of the Wild Die podcast, which is a Savage Worlds specific podcast. And I also have my own role-playing podcast. I used to do Threat Streets and Timers. ICRPG is a system that I use a lot. You'll see that my Shamblers down here have the little plus minus 10 kind of a deal. These are like ICRPG tokens. I don't really use them anymore because I've realized that it's kind of a pain to keep track this way. So yeah, and then I did some Savage Worlds Rifts specific. The Savage Rifters podcast, but it's all basically under the shell of the Murder Hobo Show, which is why you'll see videos on my channel where my Podbean exports to the YouTube channel. I should actually remove those because they're... Who has time to sit here and listen to YouTube? That said, one of the games that I ran a while back for some of my friends was this game called Rise of the Red King. It was an Arabian-themed deal based on Blue Sword Games maps, I guess. He's now called Kaora. I don't even know how to say it. But I love the guy's freaking work, man. It is some seriously fantastic stuff. If I bust over to the right monitor and the internet does its proper thing, you'll see that he is the creator of such beautiful maps as the Crystal Mine, which is a fantastic piece of... he's just redone some stuff. These assets I might actually cut out and throw inside a tabletop simulator. The only thing with doing assets is you can only make them sort of an inch thick, so some of them would sort of not really work out too well. But some of them actually might be able to spin in there. The Dragon Pond was another map that I cut out with the dragon basically hidden in the background there underneath the pond. It's another one of the maps that I've done. Wow, excuse me. Coffee is getting to me today. What are we at here, man? He's got a whole bunch of stuff. I'm just going to quickly skim through some of the stuff. He does a lot of maps for worlds and stuff. But yeah, this Sacred Grove is on the list. I really like this. I just got to figure out how to get these pieces, these wall pieces, to sort of pop up all the way around and populate trees around them. It's pretty cluttered and there's a lot of stuff going on. But this guy, Kaora, does a lot of wickedly cool stuff. So one of the maps that he pumped out, intro, let's go to here. You'll see that I have the old Red King 1 and 2. Some NPC cards. So this is the Red King tomb, and this is the entrance, Red King Enter. I split the map into two pieces. This is the first part, loading up. I turn mod caching off just so that I can make sure that things work while I'm working on stuff. And when I hit the build button, you're going to see this badass freaking map pop up. This map turned out so well. This is actually sort of the catalyst that got me into doing this. Like, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get this map up and running and working. And then once it was done, I thought it turned out so fantastically that I just started doing other maps. I should probably 3D-ize this pipe a little bit here too. Bring it up and maybe try and find a wheel or something like that. Would be kind of neat too. But the gist of the Rise of the Red King, you play a bunch of Arabian militia guys. You work for the king. Some things happen, and you end up in this tomb trying to stop the rise of the previous king, this evil Red King guy. And so when you go take your... Wow, really? This is the time that you want to start sending me stuff? D and D. Sorry about this. Do not disturb. I want to take out the Red King, and let's go to my miniatures, and I'm going to bust out my printable heroes, because inside of the printable heroes, I got some cool ass. All right, let's do something ridiculous and throw a pirate into the game. I don't even know what basically she has for a stance, but one of the cool parts about Tabletop Simulator is the ability to mess with how big things are, set the scale, so to speak. And with this top-down deal, I can set the scale just by clicking on this. The beautiful part about this little square thing called Flip Me, I think you can find it on One World's board, is that this sets the scale, right? You can see I got a little pile of skull, a little pile of crossbones over here. But if I want this to be like a really big map, a really scaled up and really massive map, I can set the scale down low and then just basically count each square as the gist of what's going on. So here's the cool part about this map. I've set this map up so that when the players start, they actually start down at the other end. We got to go to this end of the table. This is the entrance to the table. A little lantern light that I put in here, and this is where you would start. Now the gist of it is that you can see that I've locked people in place. You can't sort of get through in these little cracks. You're forced to go one side or the other. So as your players are moving along, they are forced to these areas here where they have to cross over these chains. You can see that I've lifted them up off the ground, right? So one of the things that I'm going to try is with this scale and whatnot. The premise is you're trying to get to the Red King, but there's things that are coming towards you trying to stop you. I'll get into some detail. I know I'm a bit scatterbrained with this right now, but start talking about scale and start talking about other things. But that's sort of the scale of the map. Let's go back here. Now, if I want this map to be like a little bigger, a couple of clicks, and we just shoot over and increase the size of my dude, and it just changes the scale of everything. Right, so I basically just shrunk everything down by half the size, which is kind of nice. It's one of my favorite things about Tabletop Simulator, man. Setting the scale is pretty sweet. So your players could literally be this big. This actually sort of seems about right, because you don't want your players to be here, crossing this great thing forever. So gist of it is, they get out to about here somewhere, and part of the problem with having a scale so big is setting your things there. What I found out in the last little while is magnets. If I put a magnet there, let me go back to F1, move this out of the way, and I want to put a point on here, and we'll just drop a couple of points on here and here, so that you get the idea. As they're progressing along, this might actually help, because they might just actually snap to it there, so now they don't fall off. Magnet actually are turning out to be pretty neat. The gist is they got to keep crossing back and forth. They come over to this side, they realize that once they're here, they can't get out. And so they got to cross back over this other chain. Boom, magnet clicked them there. Well, this one actually leads them over to, this side here. And then once they cross here, they go on here, etc. Right? So you see that this map actually has a zigzag pattern to it. And then once they get across to the other side, they basically exit the map and continue on to part 2. While they're crossing this map, in ICRPG, there's a thing called threats, treats, and timers. You roll your D4, and every time it goes around the table, you notch it down one time. When it gets to 1, something happens, good or bad. So what I've put in this map is, if you are walking across these chains, you got to make me a dexterity check. If you fail your check, you fall underneath the chain, not into the lava, but you slip and manage just to be hanging on by a thread. If you are not up or hanging while the timer comes around to the 1, then a gigantic wave of lava rolls down through this crevice and would literally just wipe you off. So it's kind of like a 2-shot deal. You could make a dex check to get out of the way, kind of a thing. But that was the premise of this map. I'll move this stuff out of the way. This is the first piece. Let's turn this off. So that's Rise of the Red King 1. Cool little zigzag map coming through here. Now, the second part of it... Ooh, there goes my dog. The second part of it is... We want to load this. My dog and my international student have decided to come to life. Okay, here is part 2. Part 2, sort of the same as part 1. You end up over here. This is the start area. Same deal. You got to cross over these little strips. Zigzag, work your way across. This is where I'll explain the rest of it. This little swirl I've modified. It used to have like a holy ring that shot light out, and it used to be inside of a red sphere. There's a gimmick that you need to set up in this area here, where your main character, which is either going to be like this guy, this giant lich deceiver, or I really like this printable heroes vampire. I'm going to make him a little bit bigger just so that he stands up to the size. So you take your bad guy and you set your bad guy on this pedestal. My bad guy in this game has this whip, and these little cultists are basically they've drunk the Kool-Aid, and they are here to assist the Red King in his resurrection. Ooh, yeah, that's rad. Fall down. So we're going to hit Control C, and then the gist is there's like a lineup of them. We'll just put a bunch of cultists here, right, all along this side that your players have to fight in order to get to the bad guy. The cool part is that what's happening is this lich guy is literally siphoning the life of these cultists. So he whips them, grabs them with this whip, holds them aloft, and then siphons their flesh and blood and bones. Well, basically their flesh and their blood, not their bones. And then leaves them this sort of desiccated husk. So all throughout the adventure, my players are basically being attacked by these shamblers, these undead cultists. And so I would take these things and I would put them all along here for my players to fight on either side. So it really gives them, the sense of urgency where they need to get there to stop the bad guy from creating the shamblers, but they're being attacked at the same time. You've got the zigzag pattern. You got the threat streets and timers going off. There's a lot of things happening on this map. This map was broken. I fixed it. I put in some timers, or not timers. I put in some fires. Illuminated the fires and stuff like that, and I changed it to a swirl. Let me delete all of these things off it. So that's the premise of this map. That's the Rise of the Red King. So I'm going to make these maps are fixed and available, and I will make them. What is going on? I'll make them available on the page, or at least corrected versions. But yeah, these maps turned out really well. They're damn sweet. I think there's one other one that I fixed as well, but I'm not 100% which sure it is. Anyways, that's it. That's it for this one. Rise of the Red King maps. 2 of them available. All right, peace out.